I think participants can unmute themselves, but if not, please just raise your hands and we will see it from here. And Mohammed, if you see that someone raised his hands, can you
Mhm.
please unmute that person? Maybe he wanted to ask a question, etc. So yeah, let's start.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you, Eldar, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and giving us this opportunity to share with you a little bit of experience and some good practices on how to go for multi-language when you have an e-commerce venture or an e-commerce website. So as Eldar introduced, my name is Mohammed Esfi, and I'm a former staff of the International Trade Center, the United Nations that is doing this program in cooperation with the European Union and as exports. And this will be more of a strategic approach to languages, because you all mainly have, I guess, Russian and Azeri as your two languages. So I'll try to adapt to this, but in general, this presentation is for non-English native speakers and how we can benefit from using other languages, including English, and I'll share with you that experience. Let's jump into it. The agenda, or the 6 points that we're going to share together today, are number one, we're going to start by answering why you should go multi-language. What are the advantages and what are the reasons that justify this effort and these resources? Second, I will present to you from my experience what are the different trends and techniques on managing multi-language and their costs, so that you know roughly what you're engaging into. Third, we're going to talk about the script directions. If you have heard of RTL, LTR, right to left, left to right, and TTB, top to bottom, which concerns the layout of the website and just few things that you need to keep in mind, you as a project manager. Number four, we will see how multi-language can affect or how you can benefit from it in terms of search engine optimization, so that your website can appear better on the search results. Number five is actually the most difficult part of going multi-language, and it's to have a customer support that can follow the languages that you're offering. And you will see in the presentation, it's actually easier to go multi-language, but harder to do customer support in multi-language. And that's the thing that I want to share with you. And we will close the training with some tips and good practices that you could adopt, and what I have been using actually myself. So let's go first to see why you should go multi-language. I'm going reverse. So there is this first graph that I wanted to share with you. And this graph basically presents the number of native speakers of each language in the world. And that's the dark blue here. It's the native speakers. And then you have in lighter blue here are all the people that do also speak this language, but as a second language, meaning that there are almost 1.2 billion native speakers for Mandarin Chinese, but there are also almost 170 million people that speak Mandarin as a second language. And this is the same case for English. So you see that the number of native English speakers is 360 million, but there's actually more people speaking English as a second language than there are as native language. And that will become the market of English. And this would be the market that you can touch with Mandarin as a language. So forth for Spanish, for Hindi, Bengali, French, Arabic, and Russian in your case. And I guess Azerbaijan is probably parts of the light blue of Russia, of the Russian language, meaning that you have Azeri and you also have Russian as a second language. So this graph basically gives us a rapid view on how big is the market for languages. And as you can see, the elephant in the room is the Chinese language. It's far more. There are far more people speaking Mandarin in the world than any other language, even English. Second, of course, is English. Third is Spanish. And then probably for us to notice, especially in this training, is also the French market, if you are interested in it. The Arabic market, because I know that Azerbaijani script is or was in Arabic language as well. And the Russophone market. Another way to look at this data is in this way, because what is interesting is that I wanted to share with you the big opportunity that there is with multi-language. So English is the prominent internet content language. So here we have compared the number of speakers on the right side with how much content of internet is in each language. You can see that more than half of the content of the web is actually English, is available in English. So that's the main source of content. And although Chinese is almost, in terms of native speakers, there are as many Chinese speakers as English speakers, or even more, they do not produce that much content. So that represents only 3.3% or even less of the web content that is in Chinese. So if you look at this graph in this way, you can identify somehow the lacking content as compared to the number of speakers of a given language. And that is what I wanted to present to you as an opportunity. So you can see here that we have a huge opportunity to go with Mandarin, with the Chinese language, because there are a lot of speakers, but there's not that much content. So this is somehow what I represented as the gap that we can fulfill if we start to create ourselves Chinese content and promote it in China. Likewise, for the Spanish market, there is still a big room for content creation. And if you look at Arabic also, there are not that many Arabic speaking people, but there is even less Arabic content. For the Russian market, Russia is one of the few countries that actually is catching up very fast their gap in terms of number of speakers vs content, but still there is an opportunity to go with the Russian market. So this is a little bit the idea. I think maybe for Azerbaijan also Turkish market could be interesting. So you can see that Turkish content also is lacking. So if we can create more Turkish content, we are benefiting from this opportunity. So this is a little bit about the opportunity or the gap between the web content of a language and the number of speakers. And sorry, I didn't highlight that this was in 2017. So we may ask ourselves, that's like 3 years back, what's the situation today, at least in terms of how much English is prominent in terms of language in the web. And actually, even as of 2020, you can see that the English language is far above every other language in terms of web content. And it's almost like there's no competition. And then the only language that is picking up, as you can see here at the bottom, that's Russian. The Russian language has been increasing steadily these last few years and is kind of catching up. So I think that's an interesting development, especially for you in Azerbaijan, because you have now the two most important languages, the one that we are speaking right now, English, and Russian, which you already master as well. So that's, I think, good news for Azeri entrepreneurs. You can see that the Arabic and many other languages represent less than 1% of the web content, and they sometimes don't even appear. If you want more information, I have left the sources every time at the bottom, and we will share with you this presentation in PDF. So myself, I'm born in France, so my native language is actually French, and English is my second language. And I wanted to share with you what happens sometimes, even in non-English speaking countries, is that like this Belgian user that I found on a Reddit forum, he said that although he's Francophone, he's French speaking, he mostly uses English website. Even his Google is set to google.co.uk, because the French-speaking web is so tiny. It's actually, the comments are validating the studies that I just shared with you. The World Wide Web in certain languages beside English is almost insignificant. Like, you don't find that much information. So many of us are searching in English. Many of us are searching in Russian, in your case, probably, if you don't find enough content in Azeri. So this is seen from the perspective of a user, but we as entrepreneur, we can leverage this. So they are telling us, I'm in France or I'm in Belgium, but I search in English as well. And it's the same case in Switzerland. In Switzerland, there are 3 official languages: French, German, and Italian, but then everybody also uses English. So you have to be careful that in maybe one country that you can find other languages being spoken or preferred. And this should allow us to answer our first point. So as to why we should go multi-language. Well, one, the language of the internet is English. And for like for you and me, that is not our native language, but that's our biggest market. So that's number one point that we need to retain together today. Second, there is approximately 99% of your international clients will not speak your language. They will not speak my native language. So 99% of our market potential is not in our own language. So that tells you better learn or use a second language. Maybe for you, it will be Russian before English, but still, I think English is very much a huge market. And then the third point that I wanted to bring forward in terms of answering why you should go multi-language is that as of today, it's actually getting cheaper and easier to go multi-language. If we compared this a couple years ago, translation services were expensive and it was complicated technically. But today, I think it's a very good momentum for going multi-language. And I will share with you some more information about the costs and the ways. But I hope we agree, or I hope at least there are some arguments here that there is an interest for you, there is an advantage for you to go multi-language. And I guess if you're here for this training as well, is that you believe so, at least for a certain degree. Now let's look into the types and the costs of translation techniques. And this is from my practical experience, because I had to struggle to do many websites in many languages, and then I came up to find some ways to do it faster and cheaper. And I wanted to share with you how I evolved myself as an entrepreneur like you. So there are basically 4 techniques or 4 ways of combining techniques that that I will walk you through. There is the classical one, which is using humans for translation. So I can use a freelancer or an agency, and a native speaker of Russian will help me translate from English to Russian, for example. Second is that we have machine translation, like Google Translate, DeepL. I will present to you how it can work and the cost of it and the quality of it. The third point is to actually, this is the new trend. It's called MTPE, Machine Translation Post-Editing. It's where a translator will use machine translation and then will enhance, correct as a human. So they do like 90% of the job with the machine, with the software, and then the remaining 10% is done by a human. That will bring forward a lot of advantages that I will share with you. And then the fourth way that I've been using as well is to use MTPE, which is already a big improvement, and then add up a new recent way where you involve your visitors so that they help you in translation. So it's called crowd translations. So let's see the first one, human translation. As of today, the cost, whether you use a freelancer or you use an agency, and I put for you some platforms at the bottom where you can hire translators, or some web translation agencies that are on the bottom right, that I think have very good competitive prices and multiple languages pairs that they cover. So in average, you can count about 10 cents, $10 cents, maybe 15 cents per word depending on the pair of languages that you are choosing, and also depending on the complexity of the text and the industry. So if you're translating, for example, medical, very advanced scientific medical text, then it will be, of course, more expensive. Also, if you translate from English to, let's say, Russian, it would be very cheap. But if you translate from Azerbaijani to Zulu for South Africa, that would be very, very expensive, because there are so very few translators that can do these this pair of languages. So first parameter that impacts the price is the pair of languages, the two languages involved, and the industry. But for most of us, for the services and products we do, I think we all can get away with about 10 to 12 cents per word. From English to Russian or Russian to English, it's approximately the same price. Now, sorry, because I'm also validating some newcomers. Now, there is a second cost which we often underestimate. Beside the cost of the translation itself, there is the human cost of managing actually the translation. So many times I found myself spending more time and technically more money by copying my content from my website to a Word document, and then I send the Word document to the translator. The translator will translate it. I have to go to Upwork, to Fiverr, to whatever freelancer.com platform, get back the content in Word document, and then recopy and paste. And you know all the struggles that come with pasting Word document text into a website, and then you have to clean it up and so on. So I was spending, for example, $10 in translation, and I was spending $20 or $30 in my time or my team staff time managing those translations. So it didn't make really much sense. So you have to be careful on that, because now cost of translation is going down, but the time of human management of that translation, that is what is going up. And that's what you need to manage very well. And it's actually now not a problem anymore, because the agencies that I have put for you down here, they actually have APIs and plugins that can plug to your WordPress website, that can plug into your Drupal or other customer CMS content management system, so that you can actually send translation content to be translated from your admin of your website. They translate it, and then it feeds back right into that page automatically, so that you don't have to copy and paste and use Word documents. So you may want to pay attention to these tools, and I will show you later on how it's used. And because human translation is not only time consuming, which is the last point, it takes time to translate a new content. So if you have a new blog, and like, for example, when COVID-19 started to take us all into panic mode, then it was very important to quickly put up new COVID-related news or products. And then when you use human translation, you may sometimes arrive late in terms of getting that translation ready in a new language, because it all goes through humans, and you need to negotiate with the translator, agree on the amount, and so on. You know how it works. So I wanted to just bring up this point of responsiveness of the translation. So that's for the human translation technique. Now, of course, the quality of a human translation depends on the quality of the translator, but it supposedly should be the best, because they are professional in those pair of languages. Now let's look at the machine translation. I think we all use Google Translate. At least I use it very often, and we use the Google Translate from the browser, where we translate words and so on. But Google has also an API, a professional API, for translating automatically and feeding back into your website the translated version. That's called Google Translate API. And also there is a very strong competitor that came into the market these last few years. It's a German company that's called DeepL, and they have this DeepL Pro, which is also an API. And many feedback say that DeepL automatic translation, machine translation, is probably 2 or 3 times better than Google Translation. And I have tested it myself, and I have to admit that it's very good. I mean, Google Translate is also very good. It's improving every day. But DeepL has a kind of, it's powered by a very interesting artificial intelligence application in the back, and there is a lot of human work behind for improving it from a social perspective. So I think right now the machine translation is, of course, the cheapest and the fastest, because it only takes few seconds to translate 1,000 words. So it's very hard to find cheaper and faster. The cost is really low. So I converted the cost for you, because they charge, it's so low that they charge per million character. And if we say that 5 characters makes a word in average. So Google Translate costs $20 per million of characters, and DeepL is €10 per million of characters, but you have a membership fee of €5, which actually, if you translate a little bit of content, just 1 million character per month, this €5 becomes like nothing compared to the $20 of Google Translate. So I think this works very well, and the cost is basically 0.00005 per word. So it's almost virtually free compared to human translation. Now this works very well for English, especially when you go from English to another language, and when you deal with simple sentences, simple phrases. Now, what happens with machine translation, and what you need to be careful with, and I guess you already notice it in some instances, is that from time to time there is a huge mistake. There is something that is completely wrong, completely mistranslated, and that's the weakness of machine translation. So for certain words and certain concepts, this doesn't work. So we need a human to come behind and correct it, or yourself too, if you master those languages. Now, the good thing is that this is improving every year, because people are teaching Google Translate, people are teaching DeepL Pro that this is not the way you translate this. We are saying it in a different way, and so on. And then the artificial intelligence behind is picking up also these mistakes and trying to improve them. So it is improving in a very interesting manner. And I think machine translation as of today has become a viable tool to be used. But I'm going to explain to you in the next slide how it becomes actually operational for us for doing e-commerce. And that's what the translation industry is calling MTPE, machine translation post-editing. That means that the translator will post-edit what you have or what he has translated with the machine. And this is very interesting, because the costs are really going down. You get the same quality almost as a human translation, sometimes even better. And you get it 4 times cheaper, 10 times faster, and people are offering it more and more. Or you can set it up yourself. So you can set it up yourself, and this is what I have done on one of the websites that I can show you, perpetualcharity.com, is that we installed the WordPress. It's a WordPress website. And then we installed this Translate Press plugin, which is free if you're only using 2 languages. And then we installed DeepL that I showed you before, the API. So we got everything translated by the machine. And then I went into Upwork and I hired a Chinese speaker, because this was for Chinese version. And the Chinese speaker went through, I gave him an access, and he went through and corrected all the big mistakes. So we divided our cost by 4 or 5, our translation costs, and also the speed. We could deliver very quickly. So maybe I will pass on the demo, because it's already half an hour ahead, but maybe later on with the questions, or I can come back to this and show you a few demos on the few websites that I have been using. Now the next level, like I was presenting at the beginning, is to add to the MTPE, to add the crowd translation. Now the crowd translation, I think from my experience, would be the ultimate result. It would be the ultimate result because the market, your visitors, are going to feed back to you and tell you, oh, this could be translated better. Or this is how we say it in Belgium. This is how we say it in Germany. Even if we had taken a human translator to enhance it, still there are sometimes some room for improvement, and it's free. it's free if you can enable it. And then it's also always good to involve your users in the translation, because they're going to use the keywords that they are typing. So for you, for search engine optimization, it's very nice to have a crowd feedback, because then you can use it for your own marketing, because you will know how they use or how they search for a specific product or service in their region. Now, for crowd translation to make sense, you need to have enough traffic. If you only have 10 visitors per day from France or from Germany, you will not get so many chances that somebody is going to click there and give you a feedback. So you have to build up a certain traffic, maybe hundreds visitors per day, maybe 1,000. 1,000, you start to have some feedback. People are helping you to correct your content. So maybe I can show you at least how it looks like from the user perspective once you achieve that, and how I could achieve this on a different website, which is called expertswithoutborders.org, that I'm managing. So likewise, it's a WordPress website, and then I installed another plugin called WPML, and then which we translated with the automatic translation, and then we used Upwork to hire again a Chinese native translator. And then WPML has an option which is called translation feedbacks, which I just enabled, and that gave me this crowd translation option. And I can share with you how it looks like. So if I go on Experts Without Borders, this is the English. I'm going back to the English version. So this is the English version. This is the source of the content. So it doesn't have the feedback, because we think that our English is good enough. But I enabled it for the translated version, which is Chinese, Mandarin. So this actually was translated, like I said, was translated into automatically. And then a human came, a Chinese native speaker came and enhanced it so that everything looks properly in terms of Mandarin. And then we still enable this feedback here, which you can see a Chinese person can come and start the feedback and give a record, and then he will get a chance to enter a translation version. So I will put back my slide here, which is more explicit when it comes to English, to the German feedback. So they can type in what is, according to them, the version that we should use in terms of translation. So this is for this last technique that I think is the technique that we should all aspire to, reach this level of MTPE plus crowd translation. I think that would be the best result for the best price. Now, let's look together at the script direction. And I think this is something that is a little bit technical, but once we cover it, it's not, it's a one-time problem, basically. Once you solve it, it's solved forever. And it is what is called LTR, left to right, RTL, right to left, and TTB, top to bottom. So why do you need to bother about this? Is because when you have a website template or website layout, when we use Cyrillic script or Latin script like English, we all read from left to right. So probably with the video, I'm doing right to left, but you get it. We read from left to right. Our eyes movement, our head movement looks from the top left and then goes, and then it makes a Z in this way. And it's important because if you present your logo and the main information on the wrong side, then your visitor is not going to feel comfortable. So you have to present the right direction of the script to the right language. Now, this becomes a problem once you use a language that has a different direction. For example, we have a website in English or in Russian, and then we switch to Azerbaijani language that uses the Arabic script. So just like Arabic, you guys also, your language will read from right to left. So then we need to reverse everything. The logo, the menu, and the column will, everything will go back to right side, and then going towards the left. So I put for you the directions here, the arrows. And then if you translate into Chinese, like what we have done in the project I'm working with, is that then the Chinese, they read from top to bottom. All ideographic languages such as Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, they read from top to bottom and then left to right. So that's why I put for you here, 1, 2, 3, top to bottom, and then they move towards the right side. So even when you're addressing the Chinese speakers or the Japanese speakers, even our, how you call it, the way we present the photos, the way we present the text, we need to make it more vertical, you know, more top to bottom, and then they will read basically a rectangle, vertical rectangle by vertical rectangle. So if we can do that for each type of language speaker, then we are in their comfort zone. Then we can sell better, we can interact better with them. We can enhance their user experience. Now, I would like to share with you a bad example of a problem with the script direction. And it's actually not that easy to deal with, and that's why we need to address it. Oh, there's a comment. Azerbaijani is not from right to left. Yes, I think for the Azerbaijani in Cyrillic language, yeah, in Cyrillic script. But if I remember correctly, there was historically a moment where Azerbaijani was in the Arabic script, but we can address this in the question answers. Thank you. I just double check that there is people waiting for me to validate. No, we're good. So I come back to the RTL, at least for the Arabic script. And you can see that Evernote, which is a big company that is having this software which allow us to organize our notes and our tasks. So they're struggling with the RTL since 2017. And in 2017 already, you could find people saying that there is an RTL problem. When they write in Arabic, it's not picking up the Arabic and it's not going from right to left. They were supposed to solve it. But then recently in 2020, I still find people complaining about RTL not working, as you can see here. And also, of course, we should look at a good example. And I think a good example is the website of the United Nations. And let's look at it just quickly, just to test them and see how they deal with multi-language and RTL. So now I'm in English. And okay, in English, we read from left to right. So, okay, the logo is on the left side, it's fine. The menu, I can read it in this direction. And the text also, I can read it in this direction. Now, let's switch to Arabic. Al-Arabiya here. And indeed, you can see that they have switched everything. So now the logo is on the right side. And now I can read from right to left, including the menu. This was the first item menu on the left side when we were in English. So now I can read like this as an Arabic speaker. Now this is making much more sense for me. This is natural for me. I can read in my way, in my direction, which is right to left, RTL. So the UN is doing a good job on this part. And if I look at Chinese, it's also going top to, actually it's not the best. For Chinese, they're not doing the best job. So it's going left to right and top to bottom, but as a paragraph. The best way would have been to really make columns like the Chinese and the Japanese they do, and then move from column to column. I think we can see that on the Alibaba website in their local languages. But I'll go faster on this part and just go back to our presentation. Let's at least convene that from the RTL perspective, the UN website is doing very well. Now, you all have different ways of doing websites. So I did a quick research on the readiness of solutions for RTL or TTB or LTR. And what I noticed is that if you're using Wix or Shopify, because they are cloud-based solutions, they are SaaS-based solution as a software. So it took them time to actually implement RTL. And Wix implemented it in 2018 in March. They finally fully supported Arabic websites, Hebrew website, Azeri, Azerbaijani, or maybe Arabic scripted languages to fully function. And Shopify, even just recently, they are, as of June, they are still struggling with RTL, and sometimes we have to choose a specific theme and then do some custom coding so that RTL can work very well. Now, for the other types of e-commerce website or content management system, CMS, because it's community-based and it's code and many people are coding, it's usually more ready for languages. So, for example, on WooCommerce, PrestaShop, and Magento, you can find hundreds of templates and hundreds of themes that are perfectly working with any direction of script, left to right, right to left, top to bottom. So it's not so much a problem. So we can conclude that as of today, almost all solutions do support RTL and other directions. So it's not a problem anymore. What can be the problem is what I'm going to share with you next, which I think, yes, I'm sorry. I'm missing a slide, so I'm going to show it to you on the browser. What I invite you to do is to test your website. And there is, I will share with you maybe later on, there is a website that can allow you to test. It's probably further in my demo. Sorry, I'm confusing. I'm confusing myself. So RTL, you have to test it manually, forgive me, by looking at how the layout is functioning and if it's going the right direction. Now let's go to the next point, which is number 4, how languages and search engine optimization can work and how you can actually at least avoid some mistakes and benefit from multi-language content. And this is actually what I was referring to and trying to find the app that tests it. It's the href lang tag. So what is this href lang? Even if you're not a programmer, even as a business owner, you need to understand this language, this keyword. Href lang is actually the markup, put it here, is the markup that informs search engines about which language this content is using. So if you have a website that is in Russian, but you didn't put the href lang for Russian, then your website, your Google will be confused. Is this Ukrainian? Is this some other Cyrillic languages? And they don't have time to analyze the language itself. So they need a quick markup, which normally appears at the top of your source code in your website. It tells the search engines such as Yandex or Google or Bing, it tells them this website is in Russian, this website is in Azeri, this website is in Arabic. So, and how it works, it's very simple. There is this href lang, and it says equal, and then it has 2 characters for the language. For example, EN for English. And you just have to make sure that you have the correct here 2 letters for your country language. Now, it can also be used to separate different dialects or different types of the same language. For example, if I have a website for the US and for the UK and Australia, so I have 3 markets that I want to address in English, but between the US, the UK, and Australia, there are some small differences. Or I want my website to appear as an Australian website because my products are available in Australia. In that case, I can add a second parameter that we tell that this is, yes, English, but it is English for the United States because my products are sold in the United States. And as you can see, I made a mistake. So we should put here, this is a good example. For the UK, it should be GB. And for Australia, it should be AU. And this is exactly what you need to avoid. If you are splitting or targeting a specific country for a specific language. For example, we could have your website tagged with RU for Russian, but then -AZ for Azerbaijan. just to tell Google that I am selling and I am speaking Russian for Azerbaijani market. So this is enough, I think, technicalities, just so that you know. And why do you need to have this href lang? Is that when someone types a keyword in a certain language, before displaying the websites as a result, Google will already kind of delete or will already kick out many websites just because they don't have the href lang. So if the href lang of the search is, for example, Russian, but you don't have Russian in your href lang, then you're not qualifying to be displayed for this specific query. So you're technically losing chances to get traffic. So it's a must-have. And then the second reason why you should have this tag properly done is that if you don't do it and you translate your website into different languages, you may be disqualified or you may be blacklisted by Google as having a duplicate content, meaning that you just copy and paste the same content in two places. And Google thinks that you're kind of cheating. So they will, Google and other Yandex and Bing will send less traffic to you because you're not telling them, yes, it's a similar content, but for two different regions or for two different languages. That's why I have two similar content. So these are the two main reasons. And if you're interested, if you value search engine optimization in terms of receiving traffic, then you must really take care of this href lang. And don't worry, because you don't have to be a technical person. You just have to understand that you need to control this parameter. And this is what I was looking for, is that there are many online href lang testers that are for free. For example, I tested Experts Without Borders just yesterday, and it's telling me that it's all okay for English, it's all okay for French, and it's all okay for Chinese, Mandarin. So I'm good. I know that my website is working well in terms of href lang. So I invite you to go on app.hreflang.org and just test your website. Test your website, test your competitor website. Just look at it and make sure that everything is all right. If it's not all right, then you really have to address it quickly. And you can ask a programmer or developer, or you can dive into your, how you call it, your CMS and install a plugin that will solve this problem for you. Now, there, in terms of search engines, I get a lot of questions. A lot of time I get this same question. Should I put my translated versions on the same domain? For example, expertswithoutborders.org/en for English /fr for French and so on, or should I use a completely different domain name? And this is a question that is coming back because we don't know if it's better for us in terms of search engines, if it's better or for us or not in terms of user friendliness. And I want to introduce to you a good bad example. A bad example because this is not doable. It's very expensive to do if you are a small and medium enterprise, but it is a very good practice if you have the means to do it. It is the website of Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. And if you look at this website, Doctors Without Borders, they're actually having a separate website for every country, every language. So they have another domain name for Argentina. So Argentina, it will be msf.ag. Australia, it will be msf.au, and so on for Belgium. And so they have like 50 websites or even more. And each website has a different href lang. So why I don't advise you to do like them is because they have a specific reason why they are doing this. It's not only about languages. It's because they are receiving donations, and donations are regulated differently in each country. And also people may use different payment solutions to give the donation. So somebody in Belgium will donate to the Belgium Médecins Sans Frontières, to the Belgium Doctors Without Borders. Somebody in Brazil will want to give with a Brazilian bank. So you see, MSF had a different reason which lead them to have a different domain name for each country and language, which ultimately is the best experience because the user will feel very familiar in terms of payment solutions that are adapted to his country. The language is adapted to his country. The layout, the colors are adapted to his country. So it's the best in terms of user experience. Now, this is very expensive for you as an entrepreneur. So then what should we do? And I try to answer this with this slide. Should I have my languages in the same domain or not? So it depends. There are three perspectives that you need to take into consideration. One is that from a management point of view, you have to see how complex it is to manage different domain names for different languages. That means that you have to go on a different domain name, or maybe you have to configure it in a more complex way so that the same content can appear on a different domain name. And also for you, from an administrative point of view, if you have staff that are translating or managing the translation, how easy it is to deal with multiple languages when you have them in different domain names, compared to if you have them in one domain in one system. So there is a management parameter, a cost management. There is the SEO perspective. So many times I get the question, is it better for me, for search engines, to have two domain names that are separate, or to have the two languages in one domain name because I want to get the maximum traffic possible? Well, as of today, it's actually not that important. Whether you have two domain names, one for each language. For example, you have mywebsite.az for Azerbaijan and mywebsite.ru for the Russian market. It doesn't make much differences for search engine optimization, because for as long as you have the href long specified, that is what is important. Not so much the domain name, it's the href long. Like I was saying, maybe you have the href long, which is ru.ru for Russia, and hyphen ru for Russia, and ru-ru as az for Azerbaijan. That's what Google wants. That's what Yandex wants. That's what Bing wants in terms of search engine optimization. Now, there could be a reason why you may want to have two domain names, but then it's not for SEO, it's not for management, it's from branding perspective. For example, in our case, in Experts Without Borders, when we launched it in the French-speaking area, so it's called Experts Sans Frontières. So the brand that is known in the French-speaking countries is Experts Sans Frontières. So we had to keep Experts Sans Frontières as a domain name for the French language, and I can show you that here. For example, when I go to English, our domain name is Experts Without Borders here, expertswithoutborders.org. But if you switch to French, because we didn't want to lose the French brand name, then now it's Experts Sans Frontières. This is in French, and even the logo is in French. So we had to keep it so that we don't lose that traffic and that brand name in that language. So this is one of the exceptions where branding will kind of give you a reason to have different domain names. But my advice for you as an entrepreneur is that unless you have a strong brand reason like we had for Experts Without Borders in the French market, it's not worth it to manage multiple domain names because it's really more complex and more expensive. So for an SME, unless you have a good reason, you can just keep the same domain and have the languages there, as long as you're having the href long done properly. So I think we have covered the technical part and the SEO about multiple language. Now let's look at the real challenge that we have when we go multiple languages, and it's the customer support challenge. And basically there are 4 reasons why customer support is actually more challenging than translation itself. For one is that when you do customer support, the content is changing very quickly, and you get new questions, new content every day or multiple times per day. You receive many emails, many communications, so it's dynamic. And it's not like translation. I translated the website in March, and maybe I added 1 or 2 pages only since March to June. So I can deal with that flow or that speed of change of content. But with customer support, every day, So it's very challenging. How am I don't even have time to translate before I can answer. That's the challenge. Second point is that each client, because this is customer support, they expect a quick answer in their language. So if somebody asks a question in Spanish, and we display Spanish in our website, then they will expect that we reply fast in Spanish. So that's a challenge. It's a time responsiveness challenge. The third point is that because now we have advertised that we speak different languages and we want to honor our visitors in their languages, we may need to hire people who speak Spanish, people who speak maybe English, if we want to answer over the phone, or German if we have displayed German. So this is the human resources, HR cost that I have put here. And then the number 4 issue is that you actually never know how much content you're going to have to translate. So if I hire somebody who speaks Spanish full-time, and then the first week of June, a lot of Spanish inquiries, but in July, there's nothing. So I'm paying a staff that speaks Spanish, but I don't have guarantee that I will have Spanish traffic to justify and pay for my Spanish speaker, my Spanish staff. So this is the challenge, especially for SMEs. I spend, but I'm not sure I'm going to make money out of it. And finally, the 5th point is that it takes money and time to train people. So if you hire a Spanish speaker, you have to explain to him your products, your services, your vision, your company values, how to answer this, how to answer that, how the product works. So it's actually a lot of work and investment to get a staff ready for customer support in a different language. So I don't want to scare you, but this is usually the challenges that we have. And because I went through it so many times, I kind of developed an approach or a strategy to make this less painful and less expensive. And I wanted to share it with you. And I can answer some questions in the questions and answer further along the line. So how can we, So those are the challenges. And the practical way that I told you that I use as a strategy, which is based on real experience, and I think you should also do it, is that one of the first questions that always come is questions about the price. So that's what you want to reduce first. You have to have clear pricing on your website. You have to show everything, including the taxes, the shipping. The best is that they, from the first look, they know how much they're going to pay, because it's just such a waste of time and energy and frustration for the user that they have to contact you to know the price of a product, especially for B2C e-commerce. So that's number 1 you must solve, is clear pricing. Even for B2B, you have a lot of advantages in preparing codes and displaying them according to the country. For example, 1 container of this product or 1 pallet for a French customer will cost this much FOB, free on board, will cost this much DDP, because this will reduce probably the first question of every visitor that may come in. So that's the number 1 I advise you to do. Clear pricing, very clearly displayed. Second, you want to reduce the questions that coming back every time. Like we all know that there is 80% of the questions that the customer asks that are always the same. Like, do you ship to Germany? Does your product come with plastic packaging? Whatever your product or your service is, there's always these 10 questions that people will ask again and again. And it's a little bit too bad that you have to reply manually every time, because that costs you money and time, and that delays the answer for the customer. So the solution is to have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, which is a page, a simple page. It doesn't have to be so technically developed, where I advise you to list the 10 most asked questions and put their answers. And this FAQ, you can put it above the contact page, in the top of the contact page before the contact form, so that instead of contacting you, they may actually find the answer. So that is one less question for you to answer. So a good FAQ, that's number 2 that you need to have on your website. It really costs nothing, and it has a huge impact on saving costs. The third point is that if you can have what is called a knowledge base or documentation online, or a self-service, self-support section in your website. So, for example, It can be tutorials. You put tutorials on how to use your service or how to use your product so that people can go and find the answers themselves. Or you can put articles, an article about how you cook this dish and this spice that I'm selling. So all this additional content that you provide to the user will reduce the questions. I will show you some examples later on the next slides. And then the fourth point, which will increase your responsiveness and reduce your time in terms of human resources, is to use the customer relationship management tool, CRM tool, where instead of replying with emails and forwarding emails from different people in your team, where you use what we call a ticketing system, which is a thread that the customer can log his question, and then many people can answer and join files and so on. And also the good thing with e-ticketing, I will show you later also, is that you can transform an e-ticket discussion into a forum question or into a FAQ question, so that the next time somebody has this question, they will find it before they contact you. And the fifth point, if you can manage to reach this level, I think it's a very good, it will be very good for your team and your business, is that you're so ready that you can basically externalize the customer support for a given language that you do not master. And I'm not saying externalizing all of the customer support, but just externalizing what we call the first level. The first level of customer support is, for example, the most common questions that do not have very critical information, very secret information. Something that you can give to an agency or a freelancer, which actually is about what you have put publicly on your website, just that the person will answer faster to the user. I will show you an example. So this is the 5 steps that I take in my businesses to drastically reduce my customer support costs in multiple languages. I'd like to share with you a good example of how it is done, and about this point here, point 2 and point 3, a good FAQ and a good knowledge-based documentation online that has a self-service. And that, if you go to Pinterest, the social media, you can see that in their help page, they have an FAQ with at least 10 questions. You see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 12 here. So we have 26 or more frequently asked questions and frequently given answers. And then you can even see more. They have actually hundreds of questions that are already answered. And then on top of that, they're showing up some articles on how to change your password, how to check the trends, and how to do this and how to do that with videos, or at least some text that explains. So they have more than 10 tutorials or support articles. This is very good because Pinterest receives so many questions every day. These kind of companies, they probably receive questions per day in thousands. So they have to reduce. If they can reduce 80% of the question, it's a big, big improvement of their profit. So this is a good example, Pinterest. Now for your case, and I'm talking now about the point 4 that I was telling you, if you can have a customer support, a customer relationship management system with an e-ticketing, that will allow you to work better. So if you do not have yet a CRM system, customer relationship management system, I invite you to study this option because it can really improve your company workflow. And there are basically 3 types of solutions out there in the market. And I listed actually those that are free or very cheap, very cost effective. So you have what we call the cloud or software as a service, which are hosted online. So Bitrix24.com, Zoho, they have Zoho Invoice, they have Zoho CRM. And then there is Odoo, which is an online ERP. ERP is Enterprise Resources Planning System. So you can actually subscribe online, and for a small fee or for free, you can manage your customers and connect with them, discuss with them, send them invoices, answer their questions through tickets with these 3 solutions. Now, if you don't want to pay a fee, or if you don't want to host something on an external system, if let's say you want to host it on your own website, then you have these scripts or these softwares that you can install on your website. OS Ticket is probably one of the most known open source ticket management system. So it's a CRM based on ticket. You also have Suite CRM, which is free, at least the first version. And Odoo also has a downloadable version of Odoo that you can install on your website. Now, if you are using WordPress, there is also plugins that you can just install, and then you will add a CRM section into your WordPress website. There is the same for Shopify. If you use Shopify or Wix or other Magento WooCommerce, you can find some plugins that will add this functionality of customer support management. So for example, for WordPress, you have WP ERP, you have Awesome Support, and you have WP Ticket that you can use. And they all have a first version that is free and that can start to do the job for you. So this is in terms of how we can get CRM, customer relationship management system, implemented in our company for very cheap. Of course, what it costs you is the training of your team. So first you have to install it. So if you don't know how to do it yourself, maybe it will cost you a few $100s to get somebody to install it on your website. So that's the first thing. Find and install your solution. And then you may take you a little bit of time to create your teams, train them, and then create different departments. For example, you have pre-sales department, sales department, troubleshooting or customer support department, billing department, management department, because you want to forward different inquiries to different departments. So this is a little bit the thing that you need to do to be ready in terms of CRM. And the last point, the point 5 that I was telling you, if you can reach it, it's really nice. And I can share with you one of the experiences I had implemented. It's where you externalize the first level support. So I will externalize whatever public information that I have. And I actually done it for one specific website that I was working on. So we externalized the live chat support. So we gave to Talk2, which is a software, a live chat software, but they have what they call live chat agents service, and they charge $1 per hour. $1 per hour, you can have somebody answering your customers online, live chat. They answer 24 hours a day, seven days a week, 365 days a year. They answer your customers in English, Italian, German, French, and Spanish. So you see here, you don't need to hire a Spanish speaker. You don't need to hire a German speaker and you want to access the German market. Unfortunately, for now, they don't have Russian, but it may come very quickly because just a few months back, they only had English. A year back, they only had English. And I'm just going to share with you how actually it works, or what you should do if you want to benefit from this. Show you on my Talk2 account. So here an example is for EVSSLV, and what you have to do when you get this live chat support system, you actually need to train their team, because they may put 5 or 6 people that they need to learn about your business. So what is important, and again, it comes back to what I have advised you in earlier, is that you need to have a knowledge base, a KB. It's called the KB, knowledge base. Is already you cover basically the FAQ. This, I am informing Talk2 team here that these are the questions that I get from my clients, and this is the answer that you should give, so that the chat person will know. Okay, can I apply for an EVSSL as a person? Yes, no, this is the answer. And when I do this, when I create the knowledge base for them, the chat support, they can actually, with one click, they will be able to answer a customer when he comes on the live chat. So this is just to show you how important it is to actually build up your knowledge base, your FAQ, because then you can use it, leverage it again for externalizing your customer support to a company or whatever. Now, if we calculate 24 hours a day at $1, this is about $750 per month. You have full customer support with live chat. So I think it's, at least for a market like France and Germany, it's very cheap, because if you had to hire a German person, the average salary is €2,000 per month, but you're not sure if you're going to leverage it. And here For $750 per month, you have 24-hour coverage. And to have 24-hour coverage, you will need to hire 2 German people. So that's actually 4,000 euro per month. So here we have divided the cost by 5, or at least for externalizing in a different language. So I hope this makes sense, and I can answer more questions if you have them in the chat. We're almost done. I will finish this presentation with some tips and some good practices that I advise you to take, just so that you can keep down your cost for multi-language. And it's 5 simple points, actually. Unless Russian is really your primary focus market, I would suggest that whatever content you create it in English first. Because if you do that, if you create every content in English, then this is the source language, which is the cheapest to translate and the cheapest to find translators for. So when I start a business in French language, because I was born in France, every time I started the business in French, it was more costly because I had to hire French companies who will translate for me in English, who will translate for me in German, and French companies are just too expensive. When I started my businesses in English, then I had much more partners to work with, and then better price offers. So my translation costs, I reduced by 30% at least, because I start from English. So this is my experience that I wanted to share with you. If you can, start with English. Now, Russian is not bad as well, because there's a lot of Russian speakers that also can translate into other languages and vice versa. But English is really the best way forward. And also, if you have content in English, that's also where machine learning works the best. Machine learning works the best for translating English language. So that's point number 1 as a tip. Now, the way you write content is the second point that is important. Sometimes I don't know if we want to show off or if we want to impress our customers, but sometimes we do some sentences that are just crazy. They are too long, too complicated, like very advanced language, but then very advanced language is also very complex semantic to get out, very complex meaning. And that creates cost in terms of translation, and that creates problems for machine translation, because they have a hard time to understand what you're saying in a big sentence. So number 2, write simple, explicit, short sentences. Make the point. And basically that comes also to point 3. Keep your IDs simple. 1 sentence, 1 ID. And then you want to express a second ID, then make another sentence. Don't try to say too many things in 1 sentence. Okay, this is a human thing that we do every day, and that is, if you can control it when you create your content, it's going to give you a lot of advantages. The 4th point that I advise you to do is to avoid, when you have photos of products or images, to avoid to have text sticking in the image, like with Photoshop or whatever. You wrote the text and the text is like fixed with the image, because that's going to give you a lot of troubles. You have, after 1 year, you have to find back that image, or you have to delete that Russian text to put the English. So you get into a lot of troubles. You end up with 5, 6 different images. So the right way to do the good practice is to keep your images just as images, and to display the text as an overlay. Technically speaking, on the website, you can do it. For example, with WordPress, I can display an image, and on top of it, I display a text. So this way, I can translate just the text, and the image in the background remains the same. It is the same photo for Russian, it is the same photo for English or Chinese. So that's point number 4, to reduce your cost of image translations. And then what I strongly advise, even if you don't have, let's say, financial capacity or human resources capacity, at least in Azerbaijan, you can do 2 languages. You can do Azeri and Russian, or English and Russian, or English and Russian, whatever. But I strongly invite you to at least start with 2 languages, because when you do 2 languages, you not only double the market, I think you triple or quadruple the market, because we don't realize how much a new language brings as a market potential. So start with 2 languages is better also than starting with 7 languages, because you're not yet ready. You need to build up some routines. So when you start with 2 languages, You may be able to manage it yourself without hiring people, or you may be able to find friends or team members that speak that language. So I will finish with that. 2 languages is a very good start, and it's a very good training and market opening. So that's how I will finish on this. And maybe Ayhan, if Ayhan, you joined us, or Eldar, I can pass back the floor to you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Mohammed. It was very interesting presentation. And I want to ask our participants, do they have some questions? And hello, if we don't have questions.
Or they can ask in the chat if they don't have a microphone on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so the last comment was that in Azerbaijani, it's from left to right. Yeah, it's...
Yes. Is it the Azerbaijani is in Cyrillic script?
No, Latin.
Latin. Okay.
Yeah. We used to be in Cyrillic during Soviet Union, but then we moved to Latin.
And before Soviet Union, was it in Arabic script?
Before Soviet Union, yes, it was Arabic. Then during 10 years, it was Latin, and then it was during about 70 years, it was Cyrillic.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Murad.
So yeah. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Can I say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I have not a question. I want to thanks for your presentation. If we told about the language, I want to thank you for the clear speech. You speak very easy for us. We understand very easy, and you give very interesting information. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Aygun. Thank you.
So if there are no more questions, then we can finalize this training. And I want to remind our participants that our next training is scheduled for, I think it's next Monday. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Mohammed.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, same time on Monday, we will have next training, and the topic will be, Mohammed?
It's a company, international company formation or company formation abroad. Let me just double check.
Yeah.
Yes, how to set up a company abroad, like in the US or in Europe. Are you still with us, Eldar? Thank you all. Thank you all for your time.
Hello. So I had some problems with my computer. So yeah, okay.
Yes,
so yeah, I think if we don't have questions, yeah, we can finish this training. Yeah, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, and see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Baku time.
Yes, thank you, Eldar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see you again on Monday.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much.
Bye. See you.